I want to start you at the moment my wife of 22 years sat across a mediation table and found out she was walking away from our marriage with nothing. Not the house, not $1 of alimony, not half of a heating and air business she used to introduce as ours at every backyard barbecue. 4 paragraphs decided all of it. Paragraphs she signed the night before our wedding and never thought about again. I hadn't forgotten them. I just never needed them until I did. My name's Gary. I'm 58. I run a heating and air business out of Spokane, Washington, the same one I started at 29 with one used service fan and a pager. I married Renee at 26, back when neither of us had 2 nickels to rub together. We raised 2 kids in the house I still live in. Our son Tyler, 20 now and out at Washington State, and our daughter Beth, who still lives 15 minutes away and drops by most Sundays. We went to the same lake every August. She still made my coffee most mornings before I left for the shop. None of it looked like a marriage that was about to end. The only unusual thing that ever happened was the week before the wedding. My father, Frank, had watched his own brother lose half of everything in an ugly divorce, and he sat me down and told me to get a prenup, no exceptions. I thought it was insulting. I did it anyway because you didn't say no to Frank Holt. Renee read about half a page, laughed, called it "your dad being your dad," and signed it in the courthouse parking lot the day before the wedding. That's the whole stake right there, 22 years before anybody knew it mattered. A piece of paper nobody remembered, sitting in a drawer, waiting. The first sign was small enough to explain away. Renee started staying late at the real estate office 3 nights a week for what she called inventory season. Her phone, which used to sit face up on the kitchen counter, started living face down in her purse. I told myself it was a new phase because I wanted to believe it. A few weeks later, I was going through our joint card statement to catch a rental car charge from a work trip, and I found a hotel 40 minutes north on a night Renee told me she was staying at her sister's. I brought it up over coffee, careful, not accusing. She said it was a last-minute broker conference, a banquet. She'd just forgotten to mention it. I remember thinking, at the time, that a man who trusts his wife is just a man who hasn't had a reason not to yet. I wanted the explanation to be true so badly that I let it be true for another month. A marriage runs on the same thing as a furnace pilot light. You don't think about it for 20 years straight, right up until the day it goes out, and the whole house goes cold around you before you even notice you're shivering. I mentioned some of it to a buddy of mine from the trade association, mostly just to hear myself say it out loud. He didn't tell me what to do. He asked one thing, whether I'd kept any of the receipts. That question sat with me longer than I expected it to. What finally broke it open wasn't dramatic. Our neighbor Craig, across the street, had mowed lawns alongside me for 15 years and helped me frame Renee's she-shed the summer before. His truck started showing up in our subdivision at hours his own wife would have had questions about, and one Tuesday I watched Renee's car pull out of his driveway at 6 in the morning while I was getting the paper off the lawn. I stood there in my robe for a long minute. Craig had been at our kids' graduation parties. He'd been at Thanksgiving more than once. I felt something in my chest that had nothing to do with anger yet, just the floor going soft under me. For 3 weeks I didn't say a word to her. I started keeping a folder of my own instead. Statement printouts, a few time-stamped photos of Craig's truck, the receipt from that hotel 40 minutes north. I told myself I was still gathering, still hoping I was wrong about all of it, right up until the morning I wasn't. Then I went to see a lawyer. Her name was Ellen Marsh, and she'd handled a contract dispute for my business years back. I told her everything, half expecting her to say Washington was a fair split state, and there wasn't much I could do beyond the obvious. Instead, she asked if we'd ever signed anything before the wedding. I'd nearly forgotten the prenup existed. I drove home, dug an old fireproof box out of the garage, and brought her the 4 pages my father had insisted on, including a forfeiture clause for infidelity that Renee had skimmed for 30 seconds in a courthouse parking lot back in 2004. Here's what I didn't know, and what reframed the whole thing. 8 years into the marriage, during a mortgage refinance, my father, before the cancer took him, had quietly walked me back into that same attorney's office to have the agreement reviewed and re-notarized, because he'd read that old prenup sometimes get thrown out in court for being stale. Renee signed the renewal too, still barely reading it, joking that Frank was still Frank even 8 years in. Ellen told me that second signature was the difference between a document a good lawyer could pick apart in an afternoon and one that was, in her words, close to bulletproof. Renee's attorney tried to argue the clause was unconscionable, outdated, signed under pressure. Ellen had 2 dated witness signatures 8 years apart, a stack of hotel charges, and Craig's own front porch security footage to back up the trigger clause. The mediation didn't take long after that. Renee kept her car, her retirement account, half of our ordinary savings. She didn't keep the house. She didn't get alimony. She didn't get a dime of a business that still has my name painted on the side of every van in the county. She cried in that mediation room. I didn't feel the wind the way I thought I would. I felt tired mostly, with something quieter underneath the tired. Craig's wife found out on her own, not from me, apparently from a neighbor 3 doors down who'd noticed the same truck at the same hours. Craig doesn't wave anymore when I'm out front, and I've stopped waiting for him to... Beth took it harder than Tyler did. She asked me once if I'd known for a while before I did anything about it. I told her the truth, that I needed to be sure, and then I needed to be smart before I let myself be angry. I still live in the house. Beth helped me repaint the kitchen last spring. Some nights I still hear that old pilot light click on downstairs, and I think about how something that small kept this house warm for 22 years without me ever once checking on it. I still keep that fireproof box on the shelf in the garage, right next to the deed, because some paperwork only matters once, and you never get to choose when. So let me ask you this. If the one document you signed and forgot about 20 years ago was still sitting there, waiting, would you even remember what was in it?